we've dealt with your cast, so we're going to probably inject some of our own, because after I talk, we're going to put some markers in your hand and have you drawing as well, so you can decide whether that's correct or not. So I'm on stage and I have a lot of objectives up here. So really 3 things in 40 minutes. One is to tell you a little bit more about graphic recording and ImageThink and explain what Derek has been doing over here on the stage. And also I'm going to give you a portion of a presentation I gave at South by Southwest last year about 4 principles and 4 ways you can use visuals to improve your brain power. A lot of it touches on so much of what the speakers earlier today. Tom talked about long-term memory and processing, as well as Pablo, and and how mind mapping makes things visible. And I also feel like what we do touches along balance of 5 objectives of education as well. So we'll see if we can get through all this in 40 minutes. Sounds good. So I am one of the co-founders of ImageThink. This is my team up here, and you can see Derek is working right next door, right here. And during this morning's presentation, Derek has been doing 3 things. Like you, he's been listening to the talks. He's also been synthesizing the information, trying to identify the main ideas, and then translating those into words and pictures. And because you guys are all mind mappers, I think you know that we think visually, so being able to map the ideas visually, put some images through it, promotes retention, engagement, and it also creates a visual document for you all to refer to after everyone's presentation. So that's what we do. The process is called graphic recording, and it's ImageThink's core service. Aside from the experience you're having as an audience member of Eric doing this for us at a conference, most of our services are real-time listening, and we help visualize and aid real business problems. Last year, our team of 11 graphic recorders supported 60 sessions, and we get to work with some really great clients. All of our clients have different names for the sessions that we help them with. It could be strategic planning, ideation, brand visioning, leadership summits, conferences like this. But regardless of what they call it, really they're all facing a problem and are looking for help using visuals to clarify, communicate, and help them collaborate around the solution. And that's what ImageThink does. So I've been doing this for 8 years at ImageThink. And when a company needs to outline a process or articulate, let's say, a patient journey or prioritize initiatives, I have visual exercises that will help them do that. And we often think of our core services as helping companies grow their business, giving them active engagement, and igniting their creativity. So I know how to do this, but why is it so effective, right? And Liam stood up here and said, there's all of the pseudoscience, and we don't necessarily want to maybe that doesn't help sell, but I was really curious, and fortunately for me, my sister is a neuroscientist at UCLA, so I felt like she was a good resource for me to turn to and talk about, when we talk about visual thinking, we know it works, like why does it work? So, what I'm going to do is just give you 4 ways you can use visuals to improve your brain power, and we're going to talk about scientifically why that works. And I had to comb a lot of really technical papers and then turn to my sister and say, what does this mean? And then I say, ooh, can I say it does this? And because she's a serious research scientist, she would be like, no, it was like a lawyer. She's like, no, you can say that it may help do this, but you can't actually say that it does. So she is completely signed off at everything I'm going to say on the stage. So the first thing is increasing your memory. And we talked about this, Pablo talked about this, Madeline talked about this, Tony talked about this, right? Visuals help increase, working visually can help increase your memory. And I love that about like working memory and deep memory and how you need, as Tony said, to make connections between those things to really get ideas to stick. So let me just ask you, how many of you are doodlers? Any doodlers in the room? Anybody doodling right now? Okay, great. Well, you don't be reticent to raise your hand because you're actually in good company. And I'm going to show you one doodle that actually kind of created a stir in the news back in 2005. And since we have some folks from the UK, they may know about this. But this doodle was found in Davos in 2005, and it was left on Tony Blair's desk. So the press got a hold of this, and they ran this, and handwriting scientists and analysis came out. They analyzed this. They said, oh, this is a doodle by an anxious, insecure man that obviously should not be leading a global power. And there was a stir about it. But then the the true author of the doodle came out, and it was this guy who was sitting next to Tony Blair at the summit. And he was not fussed, because I guess if you're the richest man in the world, you don't really care what your handwriting was. But he's not the only one. Not just Bill Gates. You guys all probably know that Google has a chief doodler, a staff doodler, but President Netanyahu tweeted out this sketch, and he became the only leader of a country to actually make it to one of the Google's official doodles, which they did discuss. If you look closely at this doodle, you might be able, I'm not sure if you can see it from there, but with the date and the location, identify it as US President Dwight Eisenhower. And I'm pretty impressed, actually, with his, and this is a security briefing, and he frequently doodled and drew right on the security briefings. It's not, again, the only one. If you look at this, can anybody tell me who this is by? Reagan. Ronald Reagan, yeah. And you can see Nancy down there, and it actually says NDRNRR, which is very timely, because yes, Nancy Reagan passed just a few days ago. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed. He draws a really mean horse, and obviously a cowboy. I don't know how I feel about that representation of an Asian person, but you know, it was a different time, I guess. You might also recognize this one by the signature. This was done by then Senator Barack Obama while he was in the Senate, and it's sold on eBay for really quite a deal for $2,000. And actually, I'm going to mention eBay later in my presentation as well. So why am I showing you these? Well, I think they're really interesting, but also the question is, are these damning artifacts by presidents and leaders of the world? Do they incriminate them as maybe ADD sufferers, juvenile and distracted? I think on the contrary, because the research suggests, and I have to use the word suggest because that's my sister right there saying I couldn't say for sure, but research suggests that, that actually Eisenhower remembered more during the security briefing when he was doodling versus if he had it. And that's because drawing increases your ability to recall inner oral brain's plasticity. You know that this statistic might not seem that surprising, which is that SAT students who take 4 years of some kind of art score higher, 50 points higher on the verbal, but they actually score 60 points higher on the math than students that actually have no arts classes at all. So, yeah, I wish I had known that when I was in school and telling my parents that I was taking art. So, if you're a doodler, keep on doodling. In fact, you don't necessarily have to make it elaborate. You don't need to be able to do a really amazing horse or a great caricature like Barack Obama did, even if it's just scribbles. There's a study that shows that you'll remember 30% more just by drawing. And what they did is they had everybody listen to a 2-minute voicemail, which who is voicemails anymore? 2 minutes sounds like forever. And they had one group just basically draw triangles, and they had the other group do nothing. And the group that had a pen in hand recalled 30% more. So it doesn't have to be pretty to work. It's just about keeping the brain active. So that's point number one. Point number two is thinking visually and working visually can cause you to have more creative and complex ideas. And it's great to be in this room because I think that you guys are already on board around that, right? So we know that this works. We know that drawing works, that sketching, when people in design phases, they turn to whiteboards. But why does it work? Well, popular is the contrary notion of the brain like this, which is the right brain has all of the fun and the left brain has all of the detail. And if you're right-handed, you feel a little bit bad about it like me, well, you can stop, because the truth is that when you're working visually, you use all parts of the brain. So it depends on a complex system of higher level cognitive function. So when someone is doing a drawing, but even when they're just thinking about doing a drawing, they put people in MRI scans and they had them imagine rather than actually even draw, their brain lights up in the same way. So a number of regions are activated, including the prefrontal cortex, which is important for integrating information and problem solving and making decisions. So the prefrontal cortex is called the CEO of the brain, and it suggests, again, that word suggests, a strong potential for cross-cognitive transfer and learning and creativity. So if we think back to Tony talking about, you need to activate different parts of the brain, not just memorization, to really remember. It makes me think of the slides. So, and then here in my talk, to groups that are not mind mappers, I use mind mapping right now as an example to show that, right? So we all know it creates free associations and connections. And just like the mind map does that, just working visually in itself, when you look at the mind map, is doing that to the different hemispheres and components of your brain. So now you know you can remember more ideas by doodling. And you can have better ideas by working visually, but what about organizing and prioritizing them? Again, you guys know that mapping systems visually, because you're mind mappers, can really help you create order, organize, and keep things prioritized. It's not complicated, so I always like to show this. This is the most basic. It shows X, which is some sort of quantity, and Y, which implies time, and ultimately, every business wants to see this, right? Moving from one direction over another. We use at ImageThink a lot of different ways to, not just doing drawings, but working spatially and visually to organize information. And this is kind of a hard image to read because it's actually the giant length of the wall at our office in Brooklyn, our main office, and it's basically a project board. It's magnetic. There's these amazing magnets that are also whiteboards, so you can erase them. And we basically put every engagement that we have, so today there's one for Biggerplate, and we move it through all of the stages for us of working with the client until completion. So what this helps me do is when I walk into office is to sort of see like how busy our project managers are, how much work we have coming in the pipeline, and like where things are backlogged. Like, of course, the inquiry where people are first contacting us is really full. We also color code it by month. That's what the frame is, and then also by the project manager, so I know what month the job is happening and who's handling it. And it's a really great system. Of course, we also work digitally, but it helps us. We turn to this all the time when we're talking as a team to see like where things are, because you can work really big and you can move it around. I mean, it's really simple when I state why it works, but it's amazing how many times people come into our office and say, oh my God, this is great, I'm going to take a picture of this, like we need to do this, right? Here's another one that we like to use, and it can be modified for lots of different ways, but this is actually, I attribute this to Scott Belsky and his book, Making Ideas Happen. Has anybody read that book? It's a fantastic book. He researches all of these high-functioning creative teams and just sees what is their process, not around the idea itself, but actually getting there. So this is one that he suggested, and we've used it in many different ways. And again, it's just building on that XY axis that I showed you, which is passion and difficulty. And then you basically have your team put up, what your initiatives are. So in this one, we just did this for fun, which was like life goals that we have. And so, is there a lot of passion? And it's very easy, well, you should get it done right away. If you're really passionate, it's very difficult. that's something to strive for. But if it's in the lower right-hand corner where you have very little passion and a lot of difficulty, we all seem to be very ambivalent about having a dog or having a child right now in my company. That gives you an indication of kind of where you should work. Building on that idea is this, which is trying to get just on an individual level, like where are your skills? So this is a quadrant now, but you can map them out: unchallenging, mastery, hate it, love it, super hard, and kind of find like where you're at. And this, you can take a picture of this, but I'm so glad you are, because it makes it easier for me to put this slide up, which is to say that drawing is in our new book. Myself and Heather Williams, the other co-founder of ImageThink, just wrote. It's not out yet. It comes out in June, but I brought a pre-sale copy, and also at the back of the room there's these little notebooks and a discount card if you want to order it. But a lot of this book contains basically these ideas around visualizing, around prioritizing, making ideas clear, and working together with teams. So this was an exercise, this octopus, around delegating. So what are all the things that you have to do that you're in charge of? And once you map those out, who can you hand that off to? Another way that it can help you manage and prioritize and work through visually with teams is this exercise, a day in the life. So either your experience or your client's experience, mapping out sort of what are all the steps for that, and allowing people to build on that really helps. So how, again, why is this so effective? I turned again to my sister Megan. And that's to say that 90% of the information that comes to the brain is visual. So once information is detected by the eye, it travels through the brain into the thalamus, and then back to the brain to the occipital lobe. And that's just the act of seeing, but it doesn't stop there. It goes through into the visual cortex, right? And then is processed in two ways, either through the what pathway, which is all about object recognition, or through the where pathway, which is where and how, which basically helps you locate objects in motion and objects spatially. Finally, it gets back to the prefrontal cortex, which we talked about, which is the CEO of the brain, and it's integrated there into making decisions and problem solving. So as you can see, again, really simple, but when we're looking at things visually, we're activating all sorts of different areas of the brain. We're seeing it, we're placing it, we're identifying it, we're locating it in space. If you think again about mind mapping or some of those, like that process flow chart that I showed you, right? Then you're also doing that on a higher level, and that's all coming together and ultimately being processed by the decision-making part of the brain. So we all want to have that higher level thinking as knowledge workers and connect those ideas, but if we start visually, we're already ahead of the game neurologically, because we're doing that on a neurological level. All right, which brings me to my fourth point, which I need your help illustrating. So China is going to pass out some papers to everybody, and this is where I'm going to start warming you up to draw, and that is working visually can help communicate emotions. And this is like the simplest way, right? So how many times has a message to a coworker diverted disaster at work, or a text message to your partner, spare yourself a fight, with just simply this, right? And this is 2 dots and a parentheses. But why does it work? How is this effective? How have we taken 2 basic ideas of grammar and punctuation and turn it into something that can soften a message, right? Let somebody know that you're really not that upset, or you're just kidding, right? So I like to use this one right here as an example of how this is effective. This is Diane Boycer. And if you look closely, you can see that. Does anybody see anything in what she's holding? It looks like a face, right? Well, she thought it looked like the Virgin Mary. This was her grilled cheese. So she didn't realize that before she took a bite out of it, which is why it's missing in the corner. And she believes she saved this in this very interesting shrine of cotton balls, and she believed it had talismanic properties. She won $80,000 at a casino with this grilled cheese, but eventually decided that she was going to part with it. So she put this grilled cheese, now 8 years old, with a bite out of it, on eBay. And how much do you think she got on eBay for this?
20,000.
That is exactly how much she got. That's amazing. I wish I had a prize to give her. That's phenomenal. She got $20,000 on eBay. And so, why is she in my presentation? Well, because I feel like that illustrates that it wasn't just Diane Boycer who saw this face in the grilled cheese. Obviously, someone else did, and very much wanted it for $20,000. So, the explanation of why someone would pay for the grilled cheese for $20,000 is is perdolia, which is basically illustrated by this slide, which is our ability as humans to want to see faces in inanimate objects, right? And you can see that all right here, and that's what was happening to Diane, and that was what was happening to her eBay buyer when they looked at the grilled cheese, is they were abstracting, taking all these abstract things and putting it together and seeing a face out of it. And maybe we're just neurologically hardwired to be complete narcissists as humans. I don't know, but we often look or even inadvertently see expressions in inanimate things, and that's why the smiley face works, right? So remember that, because when we give workshops at ImageThink about working visually and drawing, people are often the most reticent to draw people. And I don't know if anybody in the room feels like this illustration when they think about the prospect of drawing a person, but I'm here to tell you that because of perdolia, it actually you have a neurological advantage to making expressions. So I'd like, with your help, to illustrate this right now. And so you all have a white sheet of paper. This is a pretty quick exercise. What I'd like you to do is to draw this grid of 9 circles. Try to make them all the same size, and like maybe donut hole size is a good size. You can skip writing the lines for now. You don't need to do that. And just let me know that you're finished by looking. Okay, and we're going to move quickly because I don't want you to think too much about this, but I'll give you the instructions verbally, but then again, because who I am and you are who you are, we're going to look at it visually too. So, what I'd like you to do is to put 2 dots in each circle about 1/3 of the way down from the top of the circle. Okay, great. Next step. Now, just I'd like you to make a little less than sign and put it right in the middle of each circle below those 2 dots. So ultimately, it looks like this. Next, I want you to just make a dashed line below that less than sign across just the first row of circles. And then, once you do that, I want you to make an upside down arch, or a right side up arch below, across the middle row of circles. And then lastly, I want you to make that arch, but make it upside down across the bottom row of the circle. And the next part is where you have to follow the directions. So now we did that in rows. We're going to do the next part in columns. So just make a straight dash now above those two dots across the top, all the way down the first column. And then in the center column, you're going to make the same upward facing arch all the way down. And then in the last column, if you guessed it, you're going to make the downward facing arch. And then take a look at your work. What do we have? We have all kinds of faces. So take a minute or 30 seconds and identify a couple of those emotions. And you can write that. That's where the lines come in my slide. You can write what those are below each one. And I'm really interested in Madeline's because I know that she's a word person, so I think we're going to be coming up with some really fantastic emotions. Okay, so remember, we did this with basically a dot, a line, and a circle, again, arch. So that's all we used. We used just like 3 basic components of very basic alphabet of drawing, right? A dot, a line, an arch. Does anyone want to tell me what emotion they came up with for the upper right circle?
Resigned.
Resigned, okay. Someone else? Doubtful. Confused, doubtful, okay. And what about this one, the middle left?
Smiling politely.
Smiling politely?
Sneaky.
Sneaky. So we have resigned, doubtful, sneaky, smiling politely. What about the lower right corner?
Leery.
Leering?
Yeah.
Disappointed.
Disappointed. Right. So you guys, with a dot, a line, a circle, have managed to kind of map out the full spectrum of human emotion. Really simply. And again, that's because we're visual creatures, and because we're hardwired to want to see faces and see emotions and connect things visually. So, in summary, basically, I pick up a pen, draw a smiley face, or map out your project visually. They'll help you remember more, connect ideas more, have richer ideas, and be able to put and communicate emotions behind them. And what I'd like to do with my remaining amount of time is I'd really like to stop talking and give you a chance to try this out. So we're going to do a couple of things in the next few minutes. And I understand that some of you are not artists by trade, not used to drawing, but stick with it. It's going to be fun, and there's no judgments. And move to the back of the room where we have put up paper. There's some over there on the right. You're going to need to get cozy with your neighbors, and there's some markers for you and cups on the floor, and just find a spot. And we're going to do an exercise that we like to do in ImageThink to warm us up, and it's called graphic scale. And it's basically kind of like speed Pictionary. So once you get to with the boards, I'll give you further instructions. Down and come back and have a seat. I will get off, so the next few minutes on, maybe I'll sit with the tech.
So, although you're all still marker in hand, can we please just give a big thank you to Nora for